Can Spider-Man Brand New Day bring the MCU back to its former glory? Let's talk about that. What is going on, everybody? Tom Chattelbash here, and if you love movies and TV like I do, then rest assured you are in the right place, and today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, if there's one thing you should know about me is that I used to be a gigantic Marvel fan. I used to anticipate every single Marvel project with bated breath. I would count down the months and days. I'd get super excited to see these movies in theaters or to watch these new shows. And that kind of ended. Not to say we haven't had some great projects post-Endgame, we certainly have, but they've been few and far between, and my interest, my passion, and more importantly, my love for Marvel has waned tremendously, and this seems to be pretty common for a lot of Marvel fans out there. You can feel the lack of hype for Marvel projects nowadays. I mean, we have Avengers Doomsday hitting theaters in December, and it just feels like no one's really talking about it. It doesn't seem to have that hype and momentum that a typical Avengers-level movie usually does, and that's pretty damn disappointing. Post-Endgame, Marvel was just trying to do too much. It was trying to have its cake and eat it too. It was stretching itself too thin, putting out way too many films and television shows, and as a result, quality dipped tremendously, and we got many projects that either were fun but forgettable, mediocre, or just downright awful. It got so bad, in fact, that Marvel finally decided, oh hey, maybe we should pull things back. Maybe we should put out fewer projects and focus on quality over quantity. But unfortunately, the damage had been done, and nowadays, Marvel just doesn't have that pull and momentum that it used to. But with all that being said, I'm not trying to make a negative video here. This is actually a hopeful, optimistic video that I'm giving you today, because I think, especially after watching the new trailer for Spider-Man Brand New Day, I think old school Marvel, the kind of Marvel that excited me, that, really made me a real passionate fan, I think it might be brewing again. And I want to be hopeful. I want to be optimistic, like the hero at the center of this new story, even though he's in a dark place. I want to be hopeful about the MCU again, and I think Brand New Day is going to bring that to me. So today, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I think Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to get the MCU back on its feet. Reason number 1, Spider-Man Brand New Day actually looks like a Peter Parker / Spider-Man-centric story for once. My big issue with the first 3 Spider-Man films, even though I've enjoyed them to varying degrees, is that they never really focused on Peter Parker. He was always hamstrung by these mentor figures like Quentin Beck and Tony Stark and Nick Fury, and it never felt like he had his time to shine. Not to mention, his movies always had to connect to the greater MCU and, follow an Avengers movie or set up the next Marvel event, and it just never felt like he had the time to shine. This time, however, it feels like things have changed. This trailer puts a heavy emphasis on Peter Parker, especially after the events of No Way Home, where he had to make that extremely difficult decision to make the people that he loves and cares about most forget about him in order to save his timeline and ultimately save his world, and now he's dealing with the after effects of that, not having any friends or family or Avengers that he can rely on or lean on. He's trying to carve his own path. He's trying to make ends meet. He's trying to fight crime on the street level, and he's in a really dark place. And this dark place has triggered this evolution / mutation that he doesn't know what's going on and what's happening to him and where he's going to go next. And it's exciting. It's unpredictable. It's refreshing. This is the kind of Spider-Man that I love, the kind of Spider-Man that's dealing with, love, loss, responsibility, the kind of Spider-Man story where he's dealing with the dichotomy of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, where he has to sacrifice one in order to help the other thrive and vice versa. He can never just have a great balance of both, and he's always trying to find the balance of both. That is my Spider-Man, and it feels like we're finally getting that here, and I love it. Yes, there are some secondary characters here that we see, like the Punisher and Scorpion and Bruce Banner and the Hand, but these characters feel so much more in line with Spider-Man and the kind of crime he's usually fighting, where it doesn't feel like we're watching an Avengers movie. We're watching a Spider-Man film where he's dealing with street-level villains, and that is so exciting. And that's what I've wanted for Spider-Man for the past 3 movies, but we haven't gotten it. I think going back to basics a little bit and keeping things street-level, I think that's a step in the right direction for Marvel, and I think that's going to help get people back on board and fall in love with these heroes again, especially Spider-Man, who's definitely one of the most beloved out there right now. Number 2, we're finally bringing back color to the MCU. This is a phrase I never thought I would need to say in 2026, but here we are. I don't know whose decision it was to make virtually every MCU film look devoid of color, where it just has like this grayscale almost appearance. Thank you for bringing back color, especially to Spider-Man, who's one of the most colorful, vibrant superheroes in Marvel. he needs it. And not only does his suit really pop here, but the swinging sequences, the action sequences, the visual panache, it finally looks like we're bringing that to the character. I mean, look, no disrespect to Jon Watts. I think that he did the best he could with the material he was given, but he felt a little bit out of his depth with Spider-Man, especially in the action sequences. They always felt a little bit lackluster to me, where it just felt like he was never really sure of himself. But director Destin Daniel Cretton, who has certainly proven his prowess with Shang-Chi and more recently Wonder Man, which was a huge pleasant surprise, he is bringing the sauce that you need to with Spider-Man. I mean, some of the shots in this trailer are gorgeous. He's even emulating certain comic book covers. He's making this movie look and feel not only like a Spider-Man film, but looking like a comic book film. And that's what MCU fans want. They want their comic book films to look and feel like comic books come to life. At least I do. And that's a huge refreshing change of pace, so thank you. And that leads me to reason number 3, Destin Daniel Cretton. This man, in my opinion, is the new Russo brothers. He's the new voice in Marvel that if his name is attached to a Marvel project, I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic, and I'm pretty damn confident he's gonna be bringing the goods. I think post-Endgame Shang-Chi was such a strong start to the next chapter of the MCU. I mean, he delivered some of the best action sequences in the MCU. He took a character that non-comic book fans, knew barely anything about and made him one of the most strong debuts, in my opinion, in the MCU. And then, of course, we haven't seen him since, but that's besides the point, but still, what the hell? And then he recently brought us Wonder Man, like I stated before, which was a gigantic pleasant surprise, which was just renewed for season 2, thankfully. And he brought such an amazing, grounded storytelling to that character who I knew very little about, and made him an engaging character who just happened to be a superhero. And he's really giving these characters the depth and time that they need in order to register and become emotionally engaging to the audience, which was a huge staple of the early MCU, which is what helped audiences fall in love with all these characters, especially leading up to these Avengers films. We need more of that, and Destin Daniel Cretton, he knows how to do that, and I think he's going to bring that to Spider-Man since he's also a huge fan of that character, and it shows. He has a very singular voice, and he knows how to bring the goods when it comes to the action sequences, but he always knows to put character first so that we care about them as they're going into these action sequences and into these set pieces, and that's crucial to not only making a great MCU film, but making just a great film in general. And I think he's a really strong voice in Marvel, and I think with him slowly getting more and more projects under his belt in the MCU, it's going to help us get back on our feet here and build a stronger foundation going forward. Reason number 4, Spider-Man Brand New Day does not seem like it is all too concerned with trying to set up the next Avengers film or connecting to the greater MCU, at least from this first trailer, and I'm so happy to see that. Like I touched on before, this feels much more like a street-level Spider-Man film, where it feels almost like it's a standalone story that just happens to have some characters that we've seen in other Marvel projects, and that is what I want more of. I want these MCU films to feel like they're building their own stories, like they're their own standalone adventures that can connect to other projects. They don't need to, and that is a huge distinction. That's why there was, first set of Marvel films that were establishing all these core characters. They worked so well because, if you watched any of those movies on their own, they're just great movies that happen to connect to one another, that aren't so connected to one another that you need to watch one in order to understand or comprehend the other. I love that. I miss that kind of MCU storytelling, because now when you're watching the MCU and the way it's been for a while, is it feels like you're just having to do homework in order to watch the next project, because if you didn't watch this TV show, you're not going to understand this movie, or if you didn't see this movie, you're not going to understand how it leads into this TV show, or where these characters are and who these characters are. It just gets confusing, it gets muddled, and that's not the kind of storytelling you want in the MCU. So the fact that we're starting to iron all that out and starting to simplify the storytelling just a little bit and wean our way out of this multiverse saga, which is one of the biggest mistakes Marvel made. It sounded great on paper, had boundless potential, but in the end, it's just been so confusing and so muddled and so inconsistent, where so many characters are left dangling, storylines are left unresolved, where there's all these setups with no payoffs. It's just been a huge swing and a miss for Marvel, and we need to be free of that so that we can not only get back to the kind of storytelling that made Marvel such a strong power in the cinematic realm, but just also bring fans back on board, more importantly. And reason number 5, I think Spider-Man Brand New Day is bringing that MCU hype back. And it just feels like an event film again, where everyone's talking about it, where the trailer just hit over 1 billion views, which apparently is the only trailer to have ever done that. That's incredible. There's hype here, there's momentum, there's excitement. People are at a fever pitch about this movie. They're, chomping at the bit to see and hear more about this movie. And that's what you want from a Marvel project. That's what we all want, to feel about Marvel again. And I think if this movie lands, if Daredevil Season 2 is as good as I'm hearing it is, if that Punisher standalone film is as good as I think it's going to be, we can finally start heading in the right direction, building that positive momentum so that come December, when Doomsday finally hits theaters, there's actually hype, there's actually excitement, and Marvel can be something we all can get excited about again, because that's something I want. I want to be excited about Marvel again. I don't want to be this apathetic, cynical Marvel viewer. That's not who I want to be. It's who I feel like I'm slowly becoming. But thankfully, there have been some projects that have instilled hope in me that make me feel like there is a timeline where the MCU can get back on track and get back to its former glory, because I think it absolutely can. We just need the right voices, and we need the right characters in the right hands, and I think we can do that. I think Spider-Man Brand New Day is showing that hope and that possibility of success. So that's my take on why I think Spider-Man Brand New Day is gonna help save the MCU, essentially. It might sound grandiose, but I think that this is the kind of film that can really help get the MCU back on track. But what do you think? Let me know down below. How do you think the MCU can get back on track? Do you think Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to be that movie that really shifts the momentum? Or do you think, they're going to need a lot more under their belt to really win the fans back over? Let me know down below. And until next time, everybody, I'm Tom Chattelbash, YouTube's most reliable movie critic.